This is a story about what happens when you have breast cancer, told in real time.
So, hi.
Hi, it's so good to see you.
You too.
It's been way too long.
It has.
Way too long. Life, right?
Yeah. Life bit me hard about a month ago, and I hit a really bad spell of depression and went to bed again, which is what I do.
Right.
Actually called in sick to work for a week and was really future tripping on, and I think it has a lot to do with the patients that I take care of who are so desperate and so poor and so sick and so much going on in their lives. And my brain was giving me a thing of like, okay, you got through cancer alone and you were fine. What about when you have a stroke? Who's going to take care of you when you have a stroke? Who's going to take care of you when you've got dementia? Just like, and it really took me to a very dark place. And, and other things were going on, just silly things. Like I think most people can manage, but sometimes it just became overwhelming. The fridge broke. We'd had lots of windy weather. The back garden was just like ankle deep in leaves. And I just couldn't get my head around fixing any of this. So I just went into hibernation.
It was overwhelming.
And then friends were like, you know how most single women manage stuff? They ask for help. They're like, most people have it's not huge, but for San Francisco, it's a biggish back garden. Like most people have somebody who comes to clean the leaves up.
Right.
Like you don't have a leaf blower, hire somebody with a leaf blower. And slowly, I started pulling out. But I think it was a lot of revisiting what could have been with the cancer that thank God wasn't. I mean, I got through it and I'm healthy. And, the updates is I just had an MRI and everything is clear.
Yes.
Which is great.
Well, it is. And the theory is, wow, it's clear. You're fine. Life should be great, just like before. And it's all good.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah. And I think you and I also both know that there's a way that doing a breast MRI is it's a little bit of a false reassurance because yes, it can recur in the other breast. It can also recur in your brain, your liver, and your lungs. And they're not looking there. They're just looking at your boobs.
Right.
So I'm very happy it hasn't recurred in my boobs, but I'm still a little bit like, could be somewhere else and they're not checking. And I pushed my oncologist on that a little bit. And she's like, yeah, you're kind of right. It is a bit of a false reassurance. Like if it's metastasized to your brain, we won't know until you get lost in the street.
I hear you because it's almost like we've done the work to be realistic. And sometimes that realism is haunting.
Yeah.
And just enough to know that, oh, this is great news-ish.
Yeah. And I don't think she would mind me sharing this. Like my mom was just diagnosed with lung cancer.
I know.
About 2 months ago. And helping her from a distance navigate the national health system that I should know better than I do, but I never worked as a nurse at home. I've only ever worked as a nurse in England. And just some of the decisions, like she had a good response to the chemo, thank God. But now they want to do radiation and she has to decide whether to do brain radiation because this type of lung cancer comes to the brain and if it recurs. And so she has to decide whether to do sort of like preventative brain radiation, which can lead to memory loss. And as my mom said to me on the phone today, she's like, I've worked really hard to keep my brain healthy. I mean, she's 84, but she's an incredibly sprightly 84-year-old. And so, it's back to sort of grappling with those decisions where the oncologists don't weigh in. They're just like, it's up to you.
Ugh.
It's your risk-benefit analysis. She's really struggling with that. So I'm actually going home to England in 10 days to help her.
Oh, I'm
through
so
some
glad
of these
you're
decisions.
going.
Yeah, me too.
I'm so glad you're going.
Yeah.
It's so hard because at 84, like she said, different situation, but we both talked about how rude it was that cancer hit us when we were healthy. And I was probably the air quotes, healthiest I'd been in a long time, had taken off weight, was active and all of that. And then rude cancer comes in.
Yeah. I mean, I had just qualified as a yoga teacher.
Right.
That was what I was going to do. I wasn't going to quit work, but I was going to bring in yoga as a pain modality, et cetera, et cetera. No, then I suddenly weighed 98 pounds and could barely get out of bed.
Right.
I'm like, thank you, cancer. That was rude.
It's so rude.
You're right. It's rude.
So rude. But, the thing is that we work all our lives, like your mom is working on her memory.
Mm-hmm.
We work all our lives to be able to ski, to run, to walk, to do those things in our 60s and our 70s and our 80s. And we take good care of ourselves. And then it's just all of a sudden, at the drop of, I take a shower, touch the wrong thing, find the wrong thing at the wrong time, or right time, whatever, however you want to think of it.
I know.
Yes, I'm grateful and fine. However, with your mom's memory at 84, going through radiation, and that mask thing and the trauma of it.
No, she doesn't know any of that. I have not shared that with her.
Oh, you're a good daughter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with your mom, like, how are you feeling? I mean, that's a really big responsibility.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like I'm more worried about her than I was about myself. And the serendipity with which she was diagnosed, and there may be people out there in the podcast world who've had a similar thing. For the two of us, we had a lump, or something was pretty obvious that we knew wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
For my mom, she had been to see her primary care provider, and she, at 84, found out that she had slightly high blood pressure, and she was really upset that she was going to have to take blood pressure meds. And she was just leaving the doctor's room and then was like, oh, by the way, I've lost a fair bit of weight in the last couple of months. And the doc was like, well, how much? And she's like 7 or 8 pounds. And my mom's, she's pretty little. And the primary care doc was like, any shortness of breath, anything? Nope, just this weight loss. And she did her job. She sent her for a chest x-ray, which showed up something, which led to a CT scan, which led to an MRI. But it was just like 6 or 7 pound weight loss. No other symptoms. And
wow,
it's a little iffy of which stage she is, but it's a stage like, it's not early stage. It's like a 3-ish. So they're talking this wonderful phrase of palliative chemotherapy. So she's acknowledged the fact that it's not going away, but that she may be able to live
to
with
manage it.
To manage it. Yeah, it's a little, but no, I feel more worried for her than I did for myself. Like when we talked about doing this recording tonight, I had to kind of remind myself that I actually went through chemo, and I often will refer to it when colleagues or other people, because I'm very open about it at work, not with patients unless it's relevant, but with other staff members. And I'll always say, oh, I went through the whole circus. And like, the circus? I'm like, yeah, I had like chemo, surgery, radiation. Like there was nothing really, and then hormonal suppression. It's like there wasn't much left they could throw at me.
Right.
But I'm also very aware that this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Right.
Which is, it's interesting around the hospital. There's lots of posters of like, 1 in 8 women. But what I find really interesting is that we have some information about male breast cancer. And I have a number of male patients right now with breast cancer. And I think that adds a whole different level of complexity. And I don't know if there are any men listening to this. I hope if there are any women who know men struggling with breast cancer, it's a whole different diagnosis for men to grapple with. Like they don't really want to wear pink ribbons and do Avon walks with a bunch of other women. I mean, one of the patients has told me it's like there's a real stigma and a real shame, and they're not. Like I have one patient who hasn't told his family that he's got breast cancer.
Well, I can imagine for a man, it can feel like breast cancer. Like, do I have too much estrogen? Like, is there something unmanly about me that I got breast cancer? And I don't feel that way, but I can imagine we don't have male parts.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Actually, that's a really good point. No, we don't.
And all men they have nipples, they have breast tissue. They just don't have the hormones or the makeup to have the breasts that we have, right?
Right.
And so there's no equivalent for a woman to be able to imagine.
That's a really good point.
Right? Because I don't have a prostate.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So tell me, 10 days you're going to see your mom?
Yes. Yeah, a week and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long are you going to be out there?
Just 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's interesting because they haven't seen me since my diagnosis. Oh. Like I went home, it was 2 Christmases ago before all of it, but when I knew something was wrong because I had blown off a couple of mammogram appointments. And I can remember saying to my mom, feel this under my arm. Like, is it just me or is there something there? And she's like, there's something there, and she's like, do not blow off the next mammogram. And I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah. But, well, I'm so glad you're going to be there for her. And I'm so sorry that you're having to make all these decisions. So please keep me posted and
I will
give your mom a hug for me. I know she doesn't know me from Adam, but
So I had an interesting conversation with my oncologist when I saw her a couple of weeks ago, because I wasn't sure when the cancer-free date begins.
Right.
Because I know with being HER2 positive, the riskiest time for me is the first 3 years. And so I was like, does it start from diagnosis? Does it start from when I finish the hormone suppressants? Like when? And she didn't have a great answer, which I thought was really interesting. She's like, nobody's ever asked me this before. I'm like, well, like I'm a numbers person. I'm kind of like, I will celebrate when I've got through 3 years. And so she gave me my post-surgical date as my cancer. Is that what they gave you?
Nobody gave me anything. They kind of asked me back. I said, so what's my cancer-free date? And they said, well, when was the cancer out of your body? And I was like, okay. And so I can see how yours is a little different because yours was gone.
It was gone.
There was nothing there. And so I count mine as 6/22/21 was the date that I had my mastectomy. And so I count that as my cancer-free date. And so I guess when they went in for you and they found nothing there.
I guess. But I'm also a little tempted to make it after radiation, just because then I know that everything had been zapped. But then I'm like, but I didn't finish my hormone suppressant until March of this year. So it's kind of confusing.
But how are you feeling?
I'm the only symptom I have, and I don't know if it's, I'm also a couple of years older than I was when I got my diagnosis.
Sure.
So I'm still tired. I can't do the going to bed at midnight thing anymore. But that also might be like it's kind of become a habit to go to bed at 9:30. It's like it doesn't feel pathological or weird. I don't have any issues with it. And partly living alone, it's like once I've eaten dinner, I'm not entirely sure what to do for the rest of the evening. So it's nice to snuggle up with the pets, listen to a podcast and fall asleep. So I don't have an issue with that really.
Am I remembering there's a big birthday coming up?
There is. I know.
It's November, right?
Yeah, November 12th. I turned 60.
What? How is that happening?
It beats me. I think my mom's making stuff up. That's why I'm going home. I want to see my birth certificate.
Are you going to be there for your birthday?
No, I'll be back for that.
You'll be back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'll be there for her 85th, which is nice.
Wow.
So
yeah, that's really
nice.
No,
it feels very weird. And I think part of the depression that I just went through was also 60's older.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say old, but it's older. And it's like, I can pretend it's not true, but things start breaking down. And I think what I've really been talking with my therapist about and with other people is like, I don't have a will, which is dumb. I don't have an advance directive. I don't have anything. So if I'm worried about who's going to take care of me after a stroke, which I haven't had a stroke, there's no indication that I'm about to, but this is my fear. Put some stuff down on paper. So I have some very smart friends who will be my executor of my will and all of this. So it's like, maybe 60 is about time to start putting some things down on paper.
Well, turning 60 is a whole different ballgame than turning 50.
Yes. Yes, it is.
I went to a friend's 60th birthday party this summer. And then a couple weeks later was my 40th high school reunion. And I was
wow.
And what was really interesting is there was a friend of mine who was there. And I was like, oh, Zick, I haven't seen you since, what's it been? Like, I don't think we were old enough to drink last time I saw you. And now we're talking about memory care for your mom. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And where's the time go? Like, so cliche.
Right.
But
yeah,
it's a different ball game. Like, you and I are probably some of the only people who can have this conversation about like, wow, between 50 and 60, I went through fucking cancer.
Yeah.
And I'm coming out on the other side, bitches.
Yeah. And I don't know if we've talked since I went on my trip to Saudi. Did we?
No, you were just about to go. The pictures were so amazing. Tell me.
Yeah, I had an amazing time for so many different reasons. But what was interesting, so I went with a group because it's kind of one of the only ways to go. And traveling solo, I didn't want to be on my own for 2 weeks. And there were 8 of us on the trip, 7 women and 1 guy.
Good for him.
And he was with one of the other women. And I was probably 20 years younger than everybody else on the trip. And it was such a joy to be with a group of 70, late 70, early 80-year-old women, most of whom had had cancer.
Wow.
There was some colon cancer. There was some breast cancer. Like I think a couple of colon cancers. The guy had prostate cancer on the trip, and I think we talked. I can remember saying before I went, like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to bring it up. Everyone was like, we've all had cancer. And they, like a couple of them used ski poles to walk, but they were all so positive and energetic. And, one of the women was like, do you mind if I ask how old you are? And I said, no, of course, I don't care. And she's like, really enjoy your 60s. She's like, your 60s are amazing. It's like, you will find that you don't give a shit about so many things.
I love it.
And I was like, this sounds great.
Yeah.
This sounds amazing. And she's like, and what I see is like a lot of my girlfriends were sick in their 50s. If you get to your 60s, your knees are going to go and your hips are going to go and you won't remember where your keys are. And she's like, but you are going to have such a great time. And I was like, that is so
I love
reassuring.
That.
Yeah, me too.
It is so fantastic.
And they were all retired. And one of them had a much younger lover from Trinidad. And they were just showing me these pictures of this hot guy. And I was like, this is great.
I love it.
The one thing they're like, keep off the dating apps. They're like, once you turn 60, they all look like granddads.
It's probably true.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I love that about your trip.
Yeah.
That's invigorating. And you know what I think? I think that the traveling is probably what keeps them young.
Absolutely. I mean, these women had traveled, like, they weren't just doing 2 weeks in Saudi. They had done 2 weeks in Oman beforehand. They were going somewhere else afterwards. They're just like, yeah, it's like we rent our house out and we just travel. And we have physical limitations. But the oldest lady on the trip who walked with a couple of ski poles the whole time, she was like up and down rock faces and she would fall and pick herself up again. She didn't give a shit. And I was like, like I tore my ACL 10 years ago and I still feel like a baby sometimes. They were such a great group of people. And it's kind of self-selected because it was an expensive trip. And so they're probably, super wealthy, entitled women. But I don't often hang out with 80-year-olds. And it was amazing.
I love that. I love that. That makes me want to go do that now.
Yeah. And their lack of concern about their own cancers, they were just like, all of our friends have had breast cancer or colon cancer or rectal cancer or some of this. Like, it was just kind of amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. And I know statistically, like 1 in 3 women will have cancer of some kind in our lifetime.
Yeah.
But it was just, it really put it into perspective for me. Yeah, no, it was great. I highly recommend a trip with a bunch of retired 80-year-old women.
Let's do it. Let me know next time and I'll go.
No, I will do.
That would be so much fun. So, Antonio, You told me when I asked you about your bathroom and you're like, well, I'm dating my contractor. I'm like, oh, who's your hot contractor?
So he's still around. It's still as nebulous as it ever was. My bathroom isn't finished. He says he's coming tomorrow. We're supposed to go out tomorrow night. We'll see if that happens. But, for right now, the last 2 years, I've sort of had to reinvent myself from so many different angles. And I feel like I'm just coming out, figuring out who I am as a single woman. I mean, single but dating woman.
Yeah.
And I've done some big things that, I chose and bought a new fridge, which to some people that sounds like a kind of a silly thing. But I was in a marriage where I wasn't allowed to have my own opinion for 25 years. So, it's like I'm making some changes in the house, and I asked for help with somebody to help me with the garden, and I'm going to do some painting. And it's just, I don't know if this is right to say it feels like a female thing, but I feel like a lot of us get controlled by the men in our lives. And now I have no one controlling me. And it's been a little terrifying where it's like I could really do anything I want, but I don't know what I want because somebody for 25 years told me what I wanted. I actually asked for a good friend's help with buying a new fridge because I just couldn't get my head around it. It's like there's a bazillion fridges and I was scared I would screw it up. And someone was like, you can't screw up buying a fridge. They keep things cold. It's like
it's
can
got
spend
one job.
Right. Like, you can spend $300 on a fridge or you can spend $6,000 on a fridge. I'm like, how do I know which one I want? And I'm like, honestly, it doesn't really matter.
Just what do you want your fridge to do? The more you want it to do, the more it's going to cost. Right.
Yeah. And then the one I ordered, when they delivered, the interior light didn't work. And initially I was like, that's it. I've got a broken fridge. And people are like, no, you just send it back.
I know. Well, it's an uphill climb to be single after so long in general. Yeah. It's an uphill climb to get normal after COVID.
Yep.
It's an uphill climb to get your head around who you are after cancer.
Yep.
And both your body, your mind, your spirit, your soul, all of those things. And you're having to figure that all out at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And proud of you. It's a lot.
Well, some days I do okay and some days I don't. And that's the way it goes. Right.
Yeah. And so you don't have any more treatments at all.
No,
right?
I'm
Nothing.
just getting... Well, and what I love about the way my oncology team at UCSF is managing it, they wanted to just do mammograms. And I said to them, look, even when we knew when I had the tumor and exactly where it was, it didn't show up in a mammogram. So I'm not happy just getting mammograms. So we're alternating MRI mammogram, which I really like.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great.
And they gave me the spiel last time I saw them of like, look, if you had to have breast cancer, which you didn't have to have it, like having a HER2 positive stage 2, you couldn't have asked for anything better. I'm like, I probably could have done, but I hear what you're coming from.
Maybe like a stage 0 with a couple little...
Right. It's like my mom had DCIS. It's not even a stage. There's a movement in medicine to have that not even counted as a cancer. So maybe I'd have liked that one.
If I could choose. I didn't get to mark the box.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so you have those every 6 months. Is that right?
No, I think it's every 3 months for the first 2 years because of the HER2.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Well, and I'm still so stunned that like the chemo just zapped it all.
Yeah, me too. And the phrase they use is my oncologist says it melted it away.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
And I'm kind of curious, like, did I pee it out? Did I poop it out? Like, where did it actually go? And I don't know what the answer is. I should ask a colleague. Oncologist because I don't know.
You should ask. I'm curious about that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean,
did it just kill itself or I don't know.
Did the poison pick it up and take it?
I don't know. I know our pee is highly scary after chemo. Like you're supposed to flush the toilet twice and all of this. But are we shedding dead cancer cells?
I don't know. I the chemo didn't work for me, so I don't know. But I want to know the answer to that question.
Yeah, I'll find out.
Like, where does a tumor go when it goes away, right?
Yeah, me too. And I hope there are people out there in podcast world Googling this right now.
I hope so too. I hope, like, come on, I want to know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you for listening to Breast Cancer Stories. To continue telling this story and helping others, we need your help. All podcasts require resources, and we have a team of people who produce it. There's costs involved, and it takes time.
If you believe in what we're doing and have the means to support the show, you can make a one-time donation, or you can set up a recurring donation in any amount through the PayPal link on our website at breastcancerstoriespodcast.com/donate.
To get the key takeaways from each episode, links to anything we've talked about, and promo codes or giveaways from our partners, sign up for our email newsletter.
You'll get notes and thoughts from me related to each episode and links to the most useful resources for all the breast cancer things. So if you have chemo brain, you'll be able to just go read your email, find anything we talked about on the podcast without having to remember it.
The link to sign up is in your show notes and on the newsletter page at breastcancerstoriespodcast.com.
We promise not to annoy you with too many emails.
Thanks for listening to Breast Cancer Stories. If you're facing a breast cancer diagnosis and you want to tell your story on the podcast, send an email to hello@theaxis.io. I'm Eva Shea, your host and executive producer. Production support for the show comes from Mary Ellen Clarkson, and our engineer is Daniel Cruiser. Breast Cancer Stories is a production of The Axis, THEAXIS.io.